Hey everyone. Yeah, if this goes off, I apologize. I don't know what's been going on. It just went off late, just recently, so I have to redo this. Because I don't know if maybe it was a time limit or something happened or whatever. But I wanted to talk about something. Maybe it's best that it did go off because I want to talk about something real quickly that, or at least try to talk about it real quickly, that ToaArcan over at DeviantArt talked about in an article he did. See, ToaArcan did an article or a journal over at DeviantArt called The Edit War. And basically he talked about the whole situation between Boulders and Penders in a quick little article. Basically pointed out that Penders and Boulders never really got along very well. Basically it was like oil and water mixed together. It just doesn't work. And the situation though with that was Penders, in my opinion, was working on the Knuckles comic, and I think because he was working on the Knuckles comic, solely focusing on that most than Sonic, that in my opinion, I think Archie Comics decided that they needed someone to focus on Sonic, and they came up with and they got Carl Boulders to do that. Hold on for a sec. My dog likes to go inside of the house, but anyway, they got Carl Boulders to do that. Now, when Carl Boulders came on board, he basically took his ideas of what he felt the Sonic comic should be and planted them into the book. And he did some very questionable things that a lot of fans, even to this day, did not like and feel were unnecessary. You see, a lot of what Boulders did took place after the space arc post 125. A lot of it took place post 125, and what that means is a lot of stuff that took place post 125 and after the space arc, a lot of fans felt were unnecessary. Now Boulders, I don't know if it was him or Penders, it might have been Boulders, did a story called The Triple Threat. Now this story was started at the end of, I believe, 129 or 130. One of those issues. It was started at the end of that. And basically, in the issue where this story was started at the end of it, Sonic had come back. Now, from a storyline perspective, Sonic had no idea that 1 year had passed on his planet. He had no idea. He had no idea that 1 year had passed on his planet, and he was, he thought, like a lot of us, that maybe a month, maybe a few weeks had passed. From his perspective, from his storyline perspective, he had thought maybe a week, maybe a few weeks, maybe a few days, maybe a month or so had passed. He had no idea that a whole year had passed. You know, he had no idea that a whole year had passed on his planet. So, you know, he was basically stuck in a situation to where everybody from their timeline, or from their perspective had thought he was dead for a year. Basically a whole year had passed and everybody thought he was dead. Because in 125 he sacrificed himself to save the planet. And unbeknownst to everybody, instead of sacrificing himself and dying, he instead was launched 85,000 light years away. Now, long story short, the space arc basically was his way of trying to get back home. And throughout this, people do give credit to either Pender or Boulders or whoever it was for the space arc doing a few things. Explaining who was behind the de-robotization of the Robians back to Mobians, except for Sonic's dad, whose injuries was so significant that de-roboticizing him would have killed him, as well as basically explaining exactly what happened to Tails' parents. Now, basically long story short, Sonic finds a way back home, but like I said, unbeknownst to him, instead of a few weeks or a few days, maybe a month passing, instead, a whole year has passed on the planet. And within that whole year, everybody still thought he was dead, especially Sally. And this is where Boulders comes in. Because basically, whether it was his idea or Pender's or whoever, in the issue that Sonic comes back to the planet and reunites with Sally, it makes it look like right off the bat, Sally's been going day after day after day after day to his memorial, his gravesite, if you will, ill and everything, and just mourning and crying over the fact that he was gone, until she's reunited with him, and then she puts a face on by saying, no, I always knew, when he said, when Sonic mentions that everybody thought he was gone, thought he was not going to come back, she puts a face on, basically lies to him right there, saying, no, I always knew you would come back. So she had to put a face on himself, basically she had to lie to him basically she had to put on a phony face by saying, hey, no, I knew you'd come back. And a lot of fans looked at that kind of at first and thinking, no, that's not really Sally. Sally would never do that. And it wasn't indicated until we got to the Triple Threat story arc and then into the infamous 134 that things really started to fall into place thanks to Boulders, or fall apart thanks to Boulders. Because not only did we see Sally run off and cry when she's watching the freaking battle, which, oh, by the way, she should be part of because she's the leader of the Freedom Fighters, and she sees Sonic getting injured, instead of trying to probably go down there and help out the fight or be there for the fight, she instead runs off to her room crying. Why? Because as we later find out, and mostly through 134, she's had therapy sessions. She's had psychology, she's basically had some therapy, psychological sessions with Dr. Quack to mentally calm her down, to mentally get her over the situation. But with Sonic coming back, and this whole situation with the Triple Threat and everything, and then 134 comes around, well, let's just say fans didn't like what they saw because basically it was indicated to them that through Boulders' writing, Sally had never really gotten over mentally what happened. And that's where this whole situation blew up. Because basically in 134, Sally was portrayed as somebody that is not really Sally. And it really upset a lot of fans to the point that they basically take 134. They take 134 and they basically, what's the word in media? Discontinuity, or discontinent it. Basically, they remove it from continuity at that time and say it never existed. Even if they look at that past timeline continuity, they basically say, no, 134 never happened. Anything between 134 and afterwards either happened or, depending on how the story was presented, never happened. Basically, they looked at anything Boulders had done during his run, and either they were okay with certain things, but also would say, no, none of this really happened. And of course, word about what happened in 134, and before that, and even afterwards, under Boulders' writing, had gotten back to Ken Penders, who was finishing up on the Knuckles comic, which I think was just recently being canceled. And we're finishing up on some backup stories for Knuckles in the main Sonic comic. And again, word had gotten to him what had happened, I guess. And in my opinion, my opinion, and probably the opinion of others, took it upon himself to try to fix the damage. Now, did he do a decent job at fixing some of it? Kind of, but not really. You see, one of the major plot points that he wanted to fix was the whole Antoine Fiasco, because basically what Boulders' plan was to do was to take Antoine and character-wise, after Sonic's sacrifice, turn him into such a grim, gritty, distant kind of person that it would affect his relationship with Bunny and they would break off. And I guess the storyline was for Antoine to go through a situation down the line where he realized, where he would basically develop and realize he shouldn't have acted the way he did towards everybody, including Bunny, and slowly that would rebuild him and Bunny's relationship. Now, I'm not sure if that was all Boulders' idea as well, or if it might have been Pender's down the line that wanted to do that. I don't really know. But anyway, Pender's wanted to fix that. But because damage had been done so much, by the time Pender's got to his line of succession story, that it was too late. I mean, Pender started to slowly fix the situation as we got into the 150th issue. Yeah. Into the 150th issue, things started to come into play. It did. What happened basically, and these were issues I think from a little before 150 and afterwards, were some of Ken Pender's final stories. And he took it upon himself, whether you like the guy or not, to try to fix as best he could certain situations. Now, did he fix all of them? No, he didn't. He still kept certain things in continuity because I guess he was all right with it, or felt it was too much damage that he didn't have enough time to fix it. But long story short, he took the line of succession story arc, the two-part story, to basically finally reveal to all the characters involved that the Antoine that had been there the whole time, that had broken up with Bunny, that had, been there when the king got sick, had married Sally, was a phony, was a fake, was the evil Antoine. And how did Penders do this? In the 150th anniversary issue, he reveals that Patch was thrown into the Prime world thanks to Scourge when he was Evil Sonic. Antoine, taking advantage of this, took his double, threw him basically into his reality, and there you go. So again, long story short, the two-part line of succession story, in Pender's eyes, kind of helped solve the situation and kind of rewrite anything Boulders had done with Antoine and several other problems, reunited Antoine and Bunny back together, and his plan from there was to build up to a wedding that was going to take place in the 200th issue. Unfortunately, Pender's plans didn't happen the way he wanted to, and then that's when Ian Flynn came on board, and despite how people feel about Ian Flynn, he basically took the reins from Pender's and slowly, in his own way, started to clean up the mess that both Pender's and Boulders had left behind. So yeah, basically Boulders and Pender's had caused a lot of damage in between being the head writers for the Sonic comic, that one had done something that fans didn't like, and the other had to come in and fix it. Yeah. You see, a lot of people looked at Boulders and what he had done with the characters, and in their eyes, making them into, a majority of them into jerks and dicks and all that, that when it got to Pender's, he knew he had to fix it somehow. I mean, basically he was making Sonic into a player, a pimp. I mean, there was an issue where Bunny gives him a kiss, a hero's kiss for saving her. So, again, that might have been post Boulders, that might have been Pender's doing right there, but still, there was situations going on. Okay? And basically Pender's had to work in the system. It's like, okay, I gotta build to getting this fixed. How do I do it? And true, there were certain situations like in 150 and afterwards that fans were okay with until we got to about Line of Succession, which I think was, or if not, was, if not, was or was Ken Pender's last story, or was one of them, was one of Ken Pender's last stories that he had written for the book. Line of Succession was one of them. And of course he had written 2 more before Ian Flynn came on board around 160, and Ian Flynn, like I said, started to slowly fix some things as well. Basically, it's like one caused the damage, another caused a little bit more, another one tried to fix it, but didn't fix all the damage. Basically, Ian Flynn was like, oh, you two, sweep, 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 sweep. Oh, I have to clean up after all of you. That's all he did. He cleaned up basically the best he could. And again, like I said, Pender's had plans, but they didn't fall through, because I think what happened is, Archie and Sega got sick and tired of him and Boulders just not working well together. I'm guessing that's what happened. So, long story short, that's why this edit war took place between Boulders and Penders. Situations like that, if not more of the situations that I can't really name right now. And again, despite how people might feel about Penders, at that time, at least he had the sense to try to fix things, maybe not to the best of his abilities, but at least he tried to fix them to where people could at least enjoy, the comic afterwards. Again, when Ian Flynn came on board, yeah, he had to fix some of the damage as well. You can't blame him for that. So, and I'm sure Ian Flynn didn't like to have to clean it up that way, but he had to. So, overall, in my opinion, that is basically what this edit war that ToaArcan at DeviantArt talks about. And ToaArcan, hopefully that helped out a little bit as well. Anybody watching this, let me know what you guys think down below. I'll talk to you all later.